Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction.
Folks, let's call it like it is. The world just got a lot more unstable. Overnight in Israel and in Iran, Israeli jets launched a series of preemptive airstrikes deep into Iran, targeting nuclear infrastructure and military sites. Being described, what I've heard, can't confirm this just yet, but what I heard was Operation Nation of Lions, which is a bold move by Netanyahu and his government. Israel claims that it's acted to knock out Iran's rapidly advancing nuclear capabilities. I think a lot of folks don't realize that they have nuclear capabilities, but they are rapidly developing those and the potential ability to deliver those. What Israel's trying to do is halt a weapons breakout that analysts say could come in mere days, folks, if actions had not been taken. You see here, this is Dom Luker's clip from his ex-post of some of the bombing footage that's going on. And I wanted to take you over to Gunther Eagleman's clip here. You see there the building is on fire, and I think we're going to see a lot of these images. They're going to be coming out. Gunther just said, obviously, there's going to be a lot of things coming out. This is Anderson Cooper on CNN. Let's play that clip.
Three new pieces of information have just come in here to our bureau. The first one is perhaps the most important. According to an Israeli source familiar with Israel's planning, quote, this is not a one-day attack. And Israel is planning for multiple waves of attack. So what we're seeing now, and there are some reports of explosions coming out of Iran, this perhaps just the beginning, according to an Israeli source who says this is not simply a one-and-done operation, and there will be more attacks in the hours, potentially, it seems, the days ahead. Again, that Israeli source saying, quote, this is not a one-day attack. In terms of the timing of it here, the Israeli government saw a window of opportunity to carry out this attack, both militarily and diplomatically. But you just heard from Kristen Holmes that the U.S. is making it very clear Israel was acting unilaterally and on its own, believing, at least from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that this is something that Israel felt that it had to do. And you heard the defense minister calling this, quote, a preemptive strike. Two other pieces of information. First, Israel's Transportation Authority has announced that Israel's airspace is closed, at least for the time being. It's unclear how long this closure will last. We have seen flight trackers. There are no aircraft in the air right now over the skies of Israel, so this confirms what we had suspected. Israel's airspace will be closed. The only indication they give is that there will be a 6-hour heads up before the airspace reopens. And then finally, just a short time ago, the last time I was talking to you, we heard an alert on our phones. That's Israel's Home Front Command putting out an emergency alert, and it essentially says, stay close to protected shelters. Stay close to shelters or somewhere to go for safety if there is...
Stop it there. And obviously, Oren Lieberman there in Israel and saying this is going to be a multi-day attack. Okay, so how do you break this thing down? How do you look at this? Obviously, they are continuing to reiterate, both Marco Rubio and President Trump, saying that this is Israel acting alone. We will see what happens. This definitely shakes everything up in terms of where things have been. And, you know, being not only an ally in the Middle East, I know there's many of you who watch this and you're like, I don't care. I don't want to get into a war. We didn't vote for a war. None of us did. I agree with that. But we'll see what happens. And you have to ask the question, why now? Because we've just seen the International Atomic Energy Agency deliver its first ever major censure of Tehran for breaching the non-proliferation rules. Iran has been pushing uranium enrichment to near weapons-grade levels, somewhere around 60% purity, with enough material afloat to build a dozen bombs in a matter of weeks. Weeks, folks. We're talking about Iran, the people that stand in the street and chant death to America. And meanwhile, you got the U.S.-Iran talks in Oman which have stalled. Trump says, don't call it imminent, but could very well happen soon. And obviously it's happening now. The key point I think that we take away is the United States has said that it will not partake in any of the bombing, no refueling of planes, no delivering of bombs, no boots on the ground, of course. The U.S. is assisting diplomatically and maintaining intelligence support, but when when the jets take off, they left U.S. assets entirely out of the physical combat footprint, which is at least good for now. We're going to see. I think Iran's response is going to tell us a lot. Now, Iran's leadership. Well, I'll tell you. Let me just say this before we go any further. When you have flimsy Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, who's going to make a post like this and say, "Game on." Pray for Israel. I mean, this guy, this war pig piece of shit, he's going to love this. Game on. This is not a game. This is not a game. Now, a year ago, Lindsey Graham had this to say in regards to the Israel and Iran potential conflict. This was on Tucker Carlson. This was 2024. Play this clip. This is Lindsey Graham talking.
Here's fellow neocon Lindsey Graham just spelling it out and calling for the bombing of Iran.
So I've been on the phone all day to the Mideast, and I've told our allies and people with connections to Iran, what I would do, I would tell Iran that if Hezbollah attacks Israel, we're going to come after you, the Iranians, and have a coordinated effort between the United States and Israel to put Iran out of the oil business by destroying their refineries. There are 4 major refineries in Iran. They're fixed targets. If Hezbollah attacks Israel, I would make Iran pay a heavy price.
What exactly would happen to the United States if we declared war on Iran and started blowing up their infrastructure? Lindsey Graham has no clue what would happen. He hasn't thought it through. He's almost 70 years old and he has no children. He doesn't care. But neither, amazingly, do most of his colleagues in Washington. They're as reckless as he is. Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw took to social media to call for what he described as a war to end all wars, as if there is such a thing. But of course, there isn't such a thing. Wars beget more war. The bigger the conflict, the uglier and longer lasting the consequences. See World War I for details.
All right. So, see, this is what we're up against. We have this GOP leadership in there, this rhino GOP leadership that has no skin in the game other than to line their own pockets with this kind of thing. This is not something that we're going to get into quickly. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, said U.S. was not involved in Israel's strikes against Iran. It needs to stay that way, according to Nick Sortor. Not our war, protect our troops. I totally agree with that. People like Lindsey Graham would love nothing more than have that happen. Marco Rubio made a statement. He said, tonight Israel took unilateral action against Iran. We are not involved in strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. Israel advised us they believe this action was necessary for self-defense. President Trump and the administration have taken all necessary steps to protect our forces and remain in close contact with our regional partners. Let me be clear, Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel. Well, we all know that Iran is not interested in playing by the rules. Iran's leadership is in no mood to back down. The IRGC has already vowed a, quote, history-making strike in retaliation targeting both Israel and American forces in the region. This is a time to pray, folks. Iran's begun extra military drills, rushed to upgrades to its air defense systems, and deployed missiles already near shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz. It's suddenly critical. It's suddenly extremely, crucially critical. We're not just talking Israel and Iran. This is a powder keg, folks. This is a proxy. You have proxy factions aligned with Tehran, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Shiite militias in Iraq, Houthi forces in Yemen. All are potentially set to escalate. And let's not even talk about or forget to talk about the potential splinter cells that are right here inside of our borders in the United States of America right now because of our open border policy under the last 4 years of Joe Biden. The Middle East could see a multi-front conflict. There's already travel warnings are going up. U.S. embassies are withdrawing non-essential staff. They've been doing that for the last couple of days. American military families are being pulled out of nearby countries. And I can't stress enough, folks, you need to be aware. You need to be on guard. You need to be careful where you go. We could be looking at something that is that ticks off and switches on right here in our own cities and states because they're here. Now, the rest of the world, we've seen oil prices spike over 5%. Markets have been jittery. The governments are scrambling to assess risk. Europe, Asia, Africa now have to brace for ripple effects. It's going to be bad. Shipping costs are going to climb. Energy insecurity, renewed geopolitical tensions. So we're taking a reset here. And with the U.S. stepping back from direct involvement, major powers like China and Russia may push harder diplomatically. Eric Doherty said, Jesse Waters just asked the burning question, what happens if Iran ramps up their nuclear program to get a nuclear weapon as fast as possible? Let's play this clip, see what Jesse says.
They took out most of Iran's air defense systems, so it is much easier for Israel to strike than it was, say, 6 months ago.
And so what is the concern if, say, they get 90% of the targets eliminated, and then the Iranians just ramp up the nuclear program as fast as possible in order to acquire a nuclear weapon to have at that point? How long do we think it would take for Iran to do that?
Well, the assessment by Israel and others within the national security establishment here in the United States is that Iran had enough fissile material to be days away from creating, if a simple bomb, if you will, maybe not a sophisticated weapon, but they certainly have enough, and they can cross that threshold very, very quickly and very easily.
Wow.
All right, that was Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin. And here's the heartbreaking truth, folks. Listen, diplomacy isn't dead, but it's teetering. Trump and envoy Steve Witkoff are still pushing negotiations in Oman, but timing is critical, folks, especially now. Iran just escalated by installing a third enrichment site and new centrifuges after the IAEA rebuke. Now, if diplomacy fails, Israel's message is clear. We'll act if we must. They posted yesterday on X that they are ready for whatever. And so we're standing at a fork in the road, folks. Best case, Iran, rattled by the strike and economic pressure, is going to re-enter serious talks, de-escalation at the UN level, regional proxies step down, global markets are going to stabilize. We hope that worst-case scenario is a full-blown Iranian retaliation that triggers open warfare across borders. Global energy shock, an ever-worsening refugee and humanitarian crisis, and it's going to be, folks, I hate to say it, a new war in the Middle East, and it's going to... The ripple effects are going to be damaging beyond anything we can imagine. So, folks, I want to remind you, folks, to be praying, because I don't think this is the road we want to take. A teaspoon of peaceful diplomacy or a gallon of war weighing on the scales of history. This moment demands humility, clarity, urgency, and prayer. I can't stress that enough. We're all connected, folks. Shipped oil heats our homes, makes our economies turn, funds every cell phone call we make. Peace in the Gulf is not just regional, it's global, whether you say we're going to stay out of it or not. The choice facing nations now isn't about Israel or Iran alone. It's about whether the world can still step back from the brink, or if we will let one strike become the spark of something nobody can easily turn off. Tune in tomorrow morning for the Dear America Show. Hopefully we'll have more to tell you. In the meantime, we're praying. We love you, and God bless.